With that summit just 2 weeks away, it was the US military commanders' chance to give their assessment of the situation on the Korean Peninsula. Admirals and generals said despite a pause in nuclear and missile testing from the DPRK, their military exercises continue as normal, although tensions have decreased.
It's decreased the chance of mistakes, miscalculation, and it's continued to preserve space for the main effort, the Department of State, to continue along this road of negotiations and discussion with the DPRK.
Military commanders largely backed intelligence officials who recently told the US Congress that the DPRK remained a big threat to the US, contradicting rhetoric from the US president. The hearing also addressed Russia and China's military posture in the region. The head of US Pacific Command said the US withdrawal from the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Agreement with Russia could give Washington more flexibility to counter growing Chinese capabilities.
China has been, since they are not party to the INF Treaty, has been investing in the kind of weapons that create a serious challenge to us. Over 95% of their ballistic missiles would not be permitted under the INF Treaty. For us to have a land-based component with that kind of capability restores maneuver to the force.
Davidson added that he thinks that China represents, quote, the greatest long-term strategic threat to a free and open Indo-Pacific and to the United States. His views reflect the change in US defense strategy, which is now more focused on what Washington calls great power competition than on combating terrorism. These hearings suggest that while the US military is willing to give the space for diplomacy to work, potentially between the US and the DPRK, it is also ramping up pressure when it comes to Russia and Chinese interests in both the Indian and Pacific Oceans. There were also calls for a much larger US Navy and continued pressure on Chinese sovereign claims in the South China Sea and elsewhere. Nathan King, CGTN, Washington.